All right. So, Bishop David Munyiri.
Yes.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
Welcome
you to the Leading Voices show. We're going to start off by talking about you. So, in a nutshell, tell me who you are.
Thank you very much. I am David Munyiri Tagana. I am the presiding bishop of Glory Outreach Assembly and also the founder. Glory Outreach Assembly is marking 30 years from when I and others started it. And also a husband to Joyce Jerry, who is a co-worker with me. I'm also a father, and I'm also a grandfather. I am also the General Secretary of the Federation of Evangelical and Indigenous Christian Churches of Kenya. And I am also the International Director of International Leadership Institute in the countries that speak English and Swahili in Africa.
Very good. That's a very wide CV. We're going to talk about that a bit later. Tell me about your early life.
My early life, I was born in Nyeri, Karatina. And I went to my early school at Kiamongi Primary School in Karatina. But I didn't go there for many years. When I was at Standard 2, my parents moved from Nyahururu, from Karatina to Nyahururu. So I ended up moving with them. So I continued. We moved from Karatina on 28th of August, 1972. So that time I was in class 2. So I continued with my primary life in another school in Daragwa called Laishiri Primary School. And I continued with my primary section in that part of Nyandarua County.
And then you went into high school and then...
Yes, then I went to high school in Lishao Secondary School, which is still in Nyandarua. Then I continued, those days we had the A-levels, the Form 5 and 6. So I went to Kijabe High School for my A-levels, and then I went to Siriba to train as a high school teacher.
Yes, but before that you had a job somewhere, isn't it?
Yes. Oh yeah, between the high school, when I completed, okay, that's a long story. Yes. I think I had many jobs.
Yes.
Because when I was in Laishiri, when I completed my primary school, we were really quite a humble family, very poor background. So I did a lot of kibarua here and there, harvesting maize. One of the teachers of my primary school really liked me, so he would give me some casual work to do to harvest maize, and he would pay me 15 shillings a day. So that gave me some money that I could use when I went to secondary school. And then when I finished the A-levels, I went to stay with my dad in Nairobi. He was a driver, and we stayed in a small tiny house in Gikomba with him. Then I got another kibarua at East Africa, fine spinners in industrial area. My job there was to push the trolley and offload the bales, because East African fine spinners was making thread. They were called the thread people of Kenya. They were making threads. So the raw material was cotton. My responsibility was to offload the cotton from the trucks and push it with the trolley to the place where it needs to go. And after some time, they discovered that I was a bit educated more than the other guys who were pushing the trolleys. So they moved me from pushing the trolley to manage the store. So I managed the store for a while. And one day, I went home and I found a letter inviting me for an interview to college.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So then now you went to become a teacher?
Yes, after college,
yes.
I became a teacher. Yes. I started working as a teacher in Karima Girls High School in Nyandarua.
Yes.
My letter of appointment was from 1st of April 1988. That's when the Teacher Service Commission posted me to teach in.
And okay, very well. And did you always want to be a teacher, or you had other ideas?
No. I never even thought I would be a teacher.
What did you want to be?
I wanted to be a newscaster. I wanted to be I wanted to be a gentleman who brings news. And actually, during my O level, when we were doing those career choices, I had applied to go to Kenya Institute of Mass Communication because I wanted to be a media person. But when my results came out, I had already passed, and I admitted to go to high school. So I didn't continue. In the process of all that, somehow I think I lost the passion to be a media person.
Okay.
Yes.
So then, so then you went into teaching. You became a teacher. For how long did you teach, and what courses did you teach?
I taught from 1st of April 1988, and I wrote my resignation letter on 1st of October 1997, so that I could give them 3 months up to January. So I basically taught for 10 years.
Which subjects?
English and Christian religious education, and also physical education.
Fine. So you resigned.
I resigned.
You resigned why?
I resigned because of God's call on my life. While I was teaching in Karema Girls High School from 1988, I discovered there was great need there in the school for spreading the gospel. And all along in my life, from college, I was the secretary of the Christian Union. In the high school at Kijabe, I was also the secretary of the Christian Union. So missions and sharing the gospel was my passion, all the way from the A levels to the college. And I discovered there was that void in Karema. So I started sharing the gospel within the school. And within 2-3 years, so many people had come to the Lord, and they had accepted the Lord, and so they were doing it. They could do it themselves. They could do what I was doing. And so I mobilized them to reach out to the community outside the school, a place called Donyonjeru. And so we started Glory Outreach Assembly in May 1991. So Glory Outreach Assembly grew so much in 91, 92, all the way. And by that time, the Lord was still speaking to me that it would be very difficult for me to manage to continue teaching and be able to provide leadership that would bring growth into Glory Outreach Assembly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you have had a lot of experience dealing with people affected with HIV and AIDS. Tell me a bit about that.
Yes. In those early days, the HIV/AIDS was declared a national disaster. It was a pandemic that everyone was so worried about, just like we are with COVID right now. And for a long time, people are not talking about it because of the stigma associated with it. So we felt that we needed to start talking about it, and we came up with the whole idea of breaking the silence. And a friend of mine who is called David Munyiri visited me, and I told him the challenge that I see in Kenya is that nobody is talking about AIDS because of the stigma, and nobody seems to understand it. How can we break this silence? David produced his movie, so he told me to give him the African symbol of announcing either a disaster or some news in the community. And I gave him the symbol of the drum, that when the drum is beaten, people will want to know what exactly is happening. So David produced a movie called Beat the Drum. And this movie was basically talking about a small boy called Musa, who was going to look for his parents, and his parents had died already of AIDS. So from that movie, we started now talking about the situation of AIDS, creating awareness, sensitizing the people. And so we ended up starting the first children's home for HIV positive children in Mahiu. And from that point now, we began getting involved in caring for the positive children, and also not just caring, but also creating awareness and becoming a voice in those days.
Yes, that must have been quite something, because I remember, well, I'm not that old, but I still remember how much stigma and how difficult it is to even, broach the subject. It took the government so long to declare a national disaster.
Yes.
So it was quite courageous of you then to embrace the...
We had no choice. We had no choice because coming from the school where I was teaching and interacting with the community, there's no way you could ignore AIDS by then. Those days I remember some statistics were released by NASCOP that indicated that for every 7 people along the Mombasa-Naivasha road, that one of them was positive. And that really shocked me, and I thought something needs to be done. And the 2 centers that were identified to be the hotspot, one was Mai Mahiu and the other one was Salga. So I thought Mai Mahiu was closer to us and we could do something in Mai Mahiu. So that is where we bought the land and started the home, for which we call Beat the Drum, for HIV/AIDS kids.
This hotspots, what caused it? Was it the trucking?
Yes, that was the cause. That was the cause, because that is where the truck drivers would actually stop and spend their night there.
Right.
And so having been away from their families for long, and having cut across the entire nation and many nations, that was the main reason for having the
All right, let's talk about the church. Let's talk about ministry. Tell me, what is the church and what is the role of the church in the world?
The church is the body of Christ. The church is also a building that symbolizes the Christian community. The role of the church in the world is to be the salt and the light. That is the way Jesus puts it in the great Sermon on the Mount that is so popular. In Matthew chapter 5, Jesus talking about the role of the church, he uses those 2 symbols, the salt and the light. The salt to give taste to the world by what we do, the light by being agents of meaningful change. And we see ourselves as agents of meaningful change by becoming the voice to the voiceless, by becoming the advocates and for those who are oppressed. The Bible has a lot to say about God being a God of the orphans, God being a God of the widows, the less fortunate, the vulnerable people, the children, equality, social justice. The church is basically an advocate for all that, and of course, an advocate of good governance.
Do you think that today, we're going to talk about good governance later, but do you think that today that the church is playing a bigger role or a smaller role in people's lives? Do you think the church is more relevant or less relevant now?
I would think that the church is very relevant. However, we could do more, and also there is a lot that is going on now, whereby people have many ways of getting help, and so if they get help through the church, it is not really the voice and the role of the church is not properly communicated, and then we don't get the proper media coverage for what we do. And I think a friend of mine once told me that the news is about the bad things. He told me that
if it bleeds, it leads.
Yes, he actually told me that if a dog bites a man, that's not news.
Yes.
But if a man bites a dog,
yes,
then it is. So all that we are doing is more of dogs biting men. So
yes.
The
church is struggling to attract the attention of society. And what can be done about that then? What do you think? What ideas do you have? I mean, today we have so many tools at our disposal.
Yes.
Social media. What can be done?
COVID-19 has taught us that there is unexploited areas that the church could use some tools in the social media, because when we were not gathering for services, we had no option but to explore how we could pass our message through the social media and every other media outlets. So I should think the globally, not just in Kenya, globally the church is better now in terms of the use of the tools within the media than before COVID. But still, again, we also have the people who have who basically are in the media. So other than the church using their own limited resources in communicating their message through the social media and any other media, I think it would be much better if there was that collaboration, or that where those who are in the media really gets the stories of what the church is doing.
I see. And how has COVID affected your church in particular? Have you had any members falling sick or losing members to COVID?
We have not had any member becoming sick, and we thank God for that. We thank God for that. But we have been very much affected in terms of job losses, in terms of income for the people, particularly the churches in the urban areas. We were very much affected, GOA churches in the urban areas, in the sense that everything, their lifestyle is hinged around the income that they make, some of it daily. Some people go to wash other people's clothes. They lost that opportunity as soon as people were told to stay home, because you no longer need anyone to come and clean your clothes. And you don't want to entertain strangers during those days. Other people just do the grocery and small medium enterprises. There were no customers. Others lost their jobs because the companies did not really need more people. And even after COVID, we realized that now the challenge is even greater, because companies and individuals seem to have learned that there are other ways of surviving without necessarily needing the human resource. So there are many people who are actually not going back to their jobs, because the employers learned how to deal with it even without paying the staff.
So is the church suffering? I'm sure the churches have been affected financially as well, contributions.
A great deal.
So how are you surviving?
We are surviving by the grace of God. We still have our members who are very, very generous, that even within the limited resources that they have, they still want to give towards promoting the vision of the organization. And because GOA has 4 vision areas, one of them being church growth, where we take the gospel to the people in the remote areas, also in towns and wherever else, and the other one being the compassion, where we establish children's homes and schools and take care of widows and orphans. The other one being leadership development, and the other one being peace building and conflict resolution. Because of these 4 areas, we have over time built philosophy within the ministry of people sharing and taking care of each other, particularly through compassion. So even with the limited resources, we still have people who are sacrificially giving to support.
Very well. So what would you say is the biggest goal of GOA in 2021?
In 2021, GOA would like to build this headquarter where we are right now. That's our greatest focus. 2021 is a very significant year for GOA, because it's the year we are celebrating 30 years. So we decided that all our anniversary gifts and gifts from friends for the 30 years, that we would channel them towards building GOA headquarters. Because the reason that we have not been able to build it is because we have been building people. We have directed our resources for the 30 years towards taking care of the orphans, providing for their education. And if you go to any of our 8 children's homes currently, where we have 400 orphans, you will see very modern and very nice buildings, structures, ranging from the dormitories, classrooms, offices, places where kids can enjoy. But those are resources that we would have used to build an office. But we thought, let's begin by taking care of the children. Well, if you go to our churches, you will find that many of our churches have permanent buildings. In this particular year, 2020, which was so difficult year, We managed to build 14 permanent churches. But we did not build the headquarters. So we said, marking 30 years, the best thing we could do is to direct our attention and focus towards building a headquarters, because there will always be orphans to be taken care of. There will always be churches out there that we can plant. But now if we put our focus towards building the headquarters, this will provide a symbol of unity for all the churches that we have. It will be a good legacy for the future generation, to be a good symbol of God's presence in the community. And everyone keeps coming here, including the training, to be a training center for leaders, because we do a lot of training. And it will also become a place for peace building and resolving conflicts.
Very good, very good. We're going to talk about that as well. But let's just go through the ministry. Let's talk about your career as a bishop. In your 30 years, you said you've been a bishop. What is the biggest challenge you've ever encountered in those 30 years? Like one thing that stands out to you that almost brought you down.
Well, I think in 2008 was a very difficult year for us, and for me in particular. My responsibility as a bishop is mainly to keep the vision of the ministry, people aligned to the vision. My responsibility is to ensure that the plans are developed that will lead us towards that vision. My responsibility is to ensure that the teams that we operate with in those 4 vision areas, that they are healthy and functional, and that we have enough resources, particularly the human and the financial. But 2008 was quite a challenging moment for us, because we had many of our friends and partners from the United States pulling out. The economy was nosediving, and they were not making good resources, and there were many things that were going on, and so our funding went so low. And we, when an organization is operating and functioning well financially, and then suddenly it goes down, that translates into a lot of conflicts in terms of you cannot feed those children, you cannot pay your education on time, you cannot pay your staff. And so that was the most difficult moment.
Was it because of the violence that was going on in the country? Or?
That was part of it. Yes. There was the post-election. There was also the economy on their side was not doing very well.
Oh yeah, the Great Recession.
Yes, the Great Recession. It was not going very well. And of course, when that starts, it comes up with many other issues of relationships between us and them, and all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So just describe to me a typical life, a typical day in the life of David Munyiri.
Well, David Munyiri wakes up at around between 3 and 4, and spends the time in a program that we call Consistent Bible Reading, or CBR. This program is a simple program where you read about 5 chapters every morning of the Bible, and then you spend some time to pray for at least 10 minutes. Then you journal 3 things out of what you have read, the fact that is coming out of those chapters, the insight that you are getting out of it, and what you are going to do about that. So I journal that, and so that sometimes could take long, but it is supposed to take not more than an hour. But then by that time now I take my time and begin to get ready for wherever my assignments are. Sometimes my assignments are here in the office, sometimes they are elsewhere. But of course, before leaving the house, I will have breakfast, and then take off to wherever it is. And my ministry is basically, as I said, it is about keeping the vision and people aligned to the vision. GOA is an international organization. So at every part of the day, I'm either doing my responsibilities to the GOA churches in Uganda or Rwanda or Burundi or Congo, or partners, GOA partners in the US or in Switzerland or here in Kenya. So when I am here, I'm coordinating my team so that every person is functioning the way they should. And then it depends on how the activities of the day are. I'll get home, and in the evening have dinner with my family, and we will share what somebody read in their CBR in the Bible. Each of them will have before meal and share what has been going on with you. Then pray together and eat, and sleep. I usually sleep not later than 10.
All right.
Yeah.
How long does it take you to prepare a sermon, and how do you prepare for a sermon?
My preparation of sermon is continuous. It's not it's not a
through
one
the
time.
CBR.
Yes, yes. So it is not difficult, because through all these insights and facts and deeds, it is not very difficult to prepare the sermon.
Okay, then since you're consistently reading the Bible, tell me your favorite Bible story. Or the story in the Bible that really speaks to you the most.
Job. Job's story is quite powerful. And,
okay.
I really look at this man whom the Bible describes as most upright, good man, a man who is performing sacrifices for his children. Everything seems to be good about him. But suddenly, the devil decides to ask for permission to test him. And he really tests him. He gets the permission and he tests him. And the man just goes through very difficult moments. And through his difficult moments, including losing his wealth and children and all that, his wife is not able to handle that. And so his wife says, let's just call it quit. Let's just curse God and die. And he says, no, shall we always be getting the good things? And eventually, and this is why I love the story, the ending is very good, because the ending, towards the end of chapter 42, the man is said to have stood through the test. He remained upright. His wealth was completely recovered, and he was blessed with some of the most beautiful daughters. And the story has really a powerful ending, which helps me really to learn that even Christians and good people, they do suffer. So suffering is not for the wicked, it's for the good people. And that if good people can endure through the suffering, that they too can have as good ending as Job did. I love that story, because the story of Job really shows me that life is about ups and downs, it's valleys and mountains, and regardless of whether you are Christian or not. So that is my favorite story.
Very good, very good. So how should we talk to children about God?
The best way to talk to children about God, number one, is by being models, role models. Children learn more by what they see than what they hear. So if the children could see good examples of the way people talk, they will learn to talk. The way people relate with each other, they will learn how to relate with each other. People, if they don't see violence, they will not be violent. And once we teach them by being good examples, then it is very easy for us to bring the principles of teaching the children. And because they learn by seeing, so even in our teaching, we have to use visuals that depending on whichever story we are teaching, we have to use visuals, not just talk to them and lecture them, so that they can learn by seeing.
So tell me then, how do you understand the concept of sin? What is sin? And is there a sin that is unforgivable? For example, maybe one of the worst things you can do perhaps is kill another, take a life. Are you forgivable if you commit murder? But first of all, tell me, what is sin? What is
sin? Sin is basically separation from God. Sin is any act that rebels against God. Sin is anything that goes contrary to God's plan for man. And sin may not necessarily be those acts, though it's part of it. Because basically human beings are sinners by virtue of the Adamic sin. Even if we never did anything wrong, and that can be seen, like murder, as you have mentioned, and others, we still have that trait of sin in us from the Adamic sin. And that's why we need the grace. That's why we need Jesus. That's because the wages of sin is death. That's what the Bible teaches us. And Jesus came to die for us. And when he died for us, and this is out of God's love for us, when he died for us, we have the opportunity to respond to that love by accepting the forgiveness and the work of the cross. So, and once we accept that, then there is no sin that is unforgivable. The scripture only talks about the sin that is we would commit against the Holy Spirit by grieving the Holy Spirit. That is the only sin that the Bible is so particular about. Something like blasphemy or something contrary to that contravenes, goes against the Holy Spirit. But every other sin is forgivable. But of course, the consequences lives with you, and it will depend on you as a person and how much you're able to uphold the grace of God upon your life, because the scars of what we did sometimes remains with us, yet we are still forgiven. Because if you killed somebody and you keep being haunted by that, it is not that you are forgiven, but choices have consequences, and you can go to jail forever. And even if you go to jail, the greatest jail or the greatest prison is somebody's conscience. Even if you were able to get away with it, and nobody was able to prove that you did it, and you were able to get away with it, you still have the prison, the jail, the conscience, which is the greatest prison that one can live. Yeah.
Very well. So when you pray, what do you pray for? And how often do you pray?
I pray for many things. As I said earlier, my prayer day begins with my CBR in the morning.
Oh yes, you said you pray every day. It
begins in the morning.
Yes.
And that is the organized time for prayer. But there's a lot of informal prayer time. When I'm driving all alone by myself,
yes,
I will want to pray and
right. And
talk to God.
What do you talk to God about?
Depends on what is in the agenda. You see, my roles, as I said earlier, I have four major roles, and most of my prayers will be along those four major roles. I will either be praying about GOA. As the founder and presiding bishop, there is so much to pray for. I will either be praying for International Leadership Institute as the international director for Africa, English and Swahili. There is so much to pray for, and I spend a lot of my time traveling to different countries in Africa. So there is a lot. I will see a lot of needs, and I'll see things that I'll need to pray for. As the General Secretary for the Federation of Indigenous Christian Churches, there's a lot to pray for the churches to come together and to be able to be that voice. And as a family man, I have a lot to pray for in terms of that.
Very well. So then, today, when you look at the world around us, what do you think the world really needs right now?
Well, the world needs Jesus. The world needs Jesus, because Jesus is the Prince of Peace. I look at the chaos everywhere. I look at America, where we thought that they are better off. They're in chaos. We have just witnessed one of the most horrible elections and transition. Just chaos. I listen to all the kind of things that are going on everywhere, and I see people need Jesus, because once we have Jesus, we get peace, and peace is one of the things that we all need. We cannot function without peace. Individually, as a nation, as the globe, we all need peace. And
so you've had a very fulfilling career, and I know you said in 2008 you had some challenges, but what is your biggest disappointment? What is okay, let me put it this way, regret. Do you have any?
I cannot think of any. I can only think of probably, sometimes I feel I should have resigned earlier. And when I look at what has happened, there are many times I ask myself if I just went straight away into the ministry. But then I also look at what I was able to accomplish within the school where I was, and then it's not really a regret as such, but looking at the growth of the ministry,
yes,
I always feel like I needed probably more time to be able to do that.
Other than the Bible, which book would you recommend to read?
Other than the Bible, I very much enjoy reading the books by Stephen Covey, and the 7 Habits of Effective Leaders. I find it very practical, and I find it providing practical principles that one can apply into their lives. Yes.
What about Kenyan author, Kenyan book?
Kenyan authors, I think I have not read many Kenyan authors other than biographies of particular people, which are stories about people that either I knew even before I read their books.
Yes.
But I think we need to
do more to develop our local.
Yes,
I agree.
That's
because
that's the point.
Because we when you walk into a bookstore, it's dominated by foreign books.
I agree.
Yes,
Totally. And it's not only in the world of books, even movies and
everything.
Yes.
Yeah, the content. The local content is.
We are too Western.
Yeah. So Bishop, let's talk about the state of our country and the state of the world. First of all, what are your thoughts on the current status of our economy?
The current status of our economy is not good. I think it is either at ICU or heading to ICU. It is not good. And once you interact with the people on the ground, that like we interact with all along, that's when you realize that the economy is bad. You will hear a local person in Lodwar or Marsabit or wherever we interact with them saying that I used to buy this cabbage. I used to buy this cabbage at 10 shillings last year. Now I'm buying it at 35. You will hear people talk about the bus fares they used to pay from this place to the other. Those basic things, people are struggling with the economy, especially when we were bringing, the children were going back to school. All we had every day is we're not going to make it.
What do you think is the reason? Is it, obviously COVID has made it worse?
COVID is one. COVID is one, and it has been a factor that has significantly contributed to that. But I also think that our politics are not politics of development. And what is happening is you'll find people from outside the country who invest here or put their money here. A good number of them, they turn to other countries. There's too much politics and people are not able to see the future in terms of investment.
Sure. What can we do about corruption?
Corruption is really a cancer for this country. It is terrible. If only the Constitution would be implemented. Chapter 6 is there clear on leadership and integrity, because I think that's where the greatest challenge is. Because the people who are corrupt are the same people that we expect to safeguard, to protect that corruption. The people who have been accused with various corruption cases, they're the same guys who are there in the forefront. Yet this chapter 6 is so clear on leadership and integrity, and so I think we just need to implement the Constitution. We just need to have our judicial systems acting and doing their work and doing it the way they should. Of course, they always tell us the logistical issues of oh, you know, you cannot, there's no evidence to prosecute this person or that, so the person gets away with it, or the cases take too long, and therefore people are seeing the corrupt guys just going on with their life normally, until the time when there will be that system of judicial system that really follows up an issue and makes a list, prosecutes, and people get to know about it and implement those simple clauses of leadership and integrity, then corruption would remain.
BBI?
BBI seems to be, unfortunately, seems to be the solution to our problems. I say it unfortunately because, like I've just said, corruption is one of the things BBI is talking about. Constitution already speaks about it in chapter 6. So how sure are we that if we already change the name in terms of corruption and say something different in BBI than what we say in chapter 6 of the Constitution, that will be solving a problem? So really, in real sense, I think what we need more in this country is the goodwill. It's the goodwill of the leadership and the top government officials and the leadership and the executive into implementing the policies. There are so many legislative things and administrative things that we are still struggling with today, yet we put them in BBI and think that now they are going to be solved, but because we are putting them in BBI. In the document itself is a good document when we think of the future. It is a good document, but there's too much duplication of things that we should not even be addressing today because they are properly taken care of elsewhere. And but my greatest concern as a church leader with BBI, number one concern is I still think the local person, me, I represent the local person. That's the person I interact with every day. Those are the people whom I support when they are hungry. I feed them or take care of their children or pray for them. So I look at everything in the eye of the benefit of the local person. I think they have been left out in these conversations. The leaders who should have represented them in these conversations have gone there with their own personal interest, not the interest of the local person. If you remember, we have gone through various processes after bombers. Then the leaders went to Naivasha, and when they came from Naivasha, even those who really were raising questions on the BBI document that would help the local person, they all came out saying, my constituencies have been added, my problem has been solved. Women came out saying, oh, we have been taken care of in our women issues. The other day, the MCAs came out strongly to say, if you can give us the car, if you can car grant, if you can do this to us. So my greatest challenge with the BBI is the self-interest of the people who have the opportunity and the voice to speak. But the local person has no that opportunity, so their interests are not taken care of. Those who should do it are leaders. They have gone there with their own personal interests. That's my greatest concern. The second greatest concern I have with this thing is the stewardship. As a church leader, I am concerned about stewardship of national resources. And I do not really think we'll be able to carry that load to fund whatever we are proposing in the BBI. We already have a huge national debt. And now what we are seeing there, I don't know how we are going to fund it. I am concerned about the stewardship of the resources. Even if we are able to fund, how do we fund it without going to the expense of major things like the health, whereby we are already having doctors struggling and many other people struggling. So those are my greatest concern. And if if things happened the way they are being proposed, like the 35% going to the county, and then we are able to prevent the corruption, which so far has not been addressed, because we can devolve the resources and increase them to 35 from 15 and still devolve the corruption to 35%, so people only steal more, and therefore eventually nothing much reaches the common person. Those are my struggles with this document.
Yes, those are very important issues that you have raised. And if in your interactions with, I mean, I'm not asking you to take a position, but in your interactions with your congregation, do you feel like they are for it or they are against it?
I go back to where I started, that I do not think proper public participation has been done. I do not think that the message has gone down to the grassroots to reach the people within the congregation. So, for example, we have not had any civic education at all. Civic education is what makes those people make informed decisions on the ground. And civic education done particularly by the church, like we have had in the 2010 Constitution and other things, translating the documents into languages that people can understand, Swahili and other local languages. That has not happened. So the question as to whether they are for it or not for it, the answer to that would be depends on who they are listening to and how they relate with that person. If their politician is saying it's good, there are people who might be saying it's good because my politician says it's good, not because they have read it. But we have a huge population of people, especially young people and elderly people, who do not understand, leave alone support BBI. They have no understanding. Last week I was in Nyeri and I interacted with very elderly people. And their concern is that they have been made to sign that they are for it during their coffee meetings, but they did not know what they were signing. They were only signing documents. So really, for a good thing, you don't want to go to people as though you have covered it or you're hiding something. You just need to bring it open, translate it to them, make it clear so that they know what they are signing.
Correct, and let the matter of BBI rest there. So in conclusion, Bishop, give me the profile of the church. How many children's homes you have, how many, the profile of the church.
Yes, as I said earlier, GOA is 30 years. We are celebrating 30 years in this 2021. And we have set apart time to celebrate from January this year all the way to 31st of March 2022. And what we'll be celebrating are the four vision areas that we focus on. One of them is church growth. We focus on church growth. We take the gospel to the unreached people groups and also to people who are reached. What we are celebrating there, it is the opportunity to take the gospel to a place like Rodwa, where people had no chance to hear the gospel, and now they have heard the gospel. And you will find GOA with 18 churches there growing and continuing. Church growth includes the work that we've done in Marsabit and other places, Samburu. So in church growth, our most vibrant part of it is sports evangelism. GOA is celebrating using sports as a way of reaching out to the 72% of the Kenyan population who are youth. And we are celebrating having introduced two sports in this country that were never there before. One of them is lolball, the other one is floorball. And for lolball, Kenya, ladies, both ladies and girls, they are the champions in the world. So our involvement in sports is something to celebrate within the church growth. We have over 300 churches in Kenya, Uganda, Burundi, Congo. Those are areas where we have church growth work. And the second area is compassion, where we have 8 children's homes and caring for 400 orphans right now. Under compassion is where we have the schools. We have 3 primary schools. One of them is in the 85 kilometers from Rodwa town in the very remote village called Akatman, where when we went there in October 2004, those people were all naked. They did not know, there was no school, there was nothing going on there. Now they have water. We have sunk boreholes there. Now they have schools. They have dispensary in their midst, and the community has completely been transformed. In Lodwar, we realized that by educating the children, we are solving the future problem in terms of sustainability and empowering them to compete in the competitive world. But we also discovered that we cannot avoid the past. So we also do adult literacy. And we have adult literacy schools where we train, where we teach the older people. So our compassion ministry includes helping the widows. We have widows who we empower. We give them cows, a chicken, and then they are able to multiply that among themselves and give each other so that they can live a good economic life. Like in Donyonjero, we have 15 widows where each of them has a cow, where they milk and sell the milk. Their economic life has completely been turned around using that. In compassion, we also deal with the circle. We teach our people to invest in GOA circle so that for economic empowerment, so that they can invest and be able to borrow and build their economic lives. And we have seen people buy land, build their houses and move into that because of the power of money. So that is basically what compassion is about. Then we have the leadership, whereby we train people, like I said earlier, to read the Bible. So that's where it begins. Then we train them. We have GGU, whereby GOA Global University, where we train people on weekly basis to become good readers. And that is where we have the International Leadership Institute coming in under that. And we train about an average of 4,000 leaders in a year from all over Africa. I just came back from Tanzania and the other time from Uganda. And we are having that impact in terms of the continent. Then the peace building, we really want people to live in peace in the families, in the church, in the nation. Right now we are investing in the Kapendo area by sending our pastors there to hold meetings with the leaders, to teach them the importance of living together and accepting each other as Kenyans. We are very strong in counseling to prepare people for marriage, and both before and after, and to resolve other conflicts. During the COVID time, we started Hope for Nations, which was an initiative to help people fight against the struggle, the challenges of COVID, where we actually fed the people. And when the COVID graphs changed and things started looking better, we started now empowering the people economically by giving them a little income where they can start something that they will do that will sustain them to recover from COVID. You'll find some people doing welding, we have empowered them, others doing grocery things, where we have empowered them so that they can be able to continue with their lives. So those are the things that we focus on, and we have great celebrations in that. GOA has a board of independent directors who kind of help us to remain focused and provide oversight. They are well-reputable people who are very experienced. Then we have the 4 directors who direct the various areas: the director for church growth, the director for compassion, the director for leadership training, the director for peace building, and all of them build teams. They build teams that they work with, like all the way to the ground, where the overseers work with the pastors, and the pastors work with the elders. So it is a whole chain, a network of teams that, yes.
Very well. Bishop, my final 2 questions are philosophical.
Yes.
What is the purpose of life, and what is the secret to happiness?
The purpose of life is to discover who we are and how we relate with our supernatural being, and how we become co-creators with the supernatural being. Life is about discovering who David is and why David exists in relation to the plan of the Creator. And once every person discovers that, and they are living within their purpose of life, they will make things better not only for themselves but also for other people. That is why I was happy teaching, but when I discover that the purpose of life for me is to have greater impact and reach out to more people than those that I could meet within a career of teaching. That's why I resigned, because I discovered that my purpose is much greater than that. If every other person discovers who they are and why their Creator brought them into this world, then that will lead to your second question, because you will only be happy if you are living according to your purpose. You'll only be happy if you are doing the things that you are passionate about. If I remained in the teaching and make a lot of money, today I would be a very senior person in terms of teaching and education, but I would not be happy because I'm not doing what I'm passionate about. But I came to GOA when there was nothing. There was no, nobody would even pay a salary or anything, and I left a salary. I made sacrifices. Then God called me to leave Kinangop, where I had a house, I had my own land, to come to Nairobi, where I was to buy everything. But because I'm following my passion, I'm following my purpose, I came, and I'm happy that way. So if we discover who we are, and we discover the giftings that God has given us, because every person is gifted to flow within their purpose. Once we discover those gifts, then we develop those gifts, either by going to school or by walking around with mentors who have done it better than us, or through whichever way, and then we deploy them in life. That is what success is about.
Very good answer. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for your time. Asante sana.
Thank you.